It's the 11th of the 3rd, 2025. The time is 10 minutes to 10. There are three things, three news items, three updates that we need to talk about in the weird and wacky world that is Formula One. Concerns about Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc now saying different things about the SF25. So too the guys and girls over at Auto Racer confirming these concerns. So too we'll talk about Netflix going into 2025 and whether they're going to dominate the TV rights of F1 in the short to medium term. So too we'll talk about rumours that Max Verstappen has a performance clause in his contract that could mean he could be gonzo as far as the balls that are red as early as 2026. No, we're not crazy. This is not a drill. Let's talk to Ferrari in the first instance, because Gary Anderson, the legend of F1, technical director of Jordan once upon a time, has written an article for the Telegraph in which he's voiced his concerns about Ferrari and the very peculiar design philosophy tree, get your words out, Cameron, of which they are barking. Here's what Gary Anderson says as his headline: I already fear for Sir Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari setup. Lest we forget, W15 was the car that caused Lewis Hamilton so many problems. If you get him a car using which he feels confident, then you will get an extra 10 to 20% from Sir Lewis' car. If he does not have that confidence, if he can't go late and aggressive on the brakes, then Houston, we have ourselves a problem. Lewis Hamilton will morph into Nicholas Latifi. I embellish and exaggerate, but I digress. Here's what Gary Anderson says. Lewis Hamilton won 2 races last year, but that notwithstanding, it was still the worst season of his career, his illustrious career. 7-time setting, Singapore 2018, 2008 Silverstone settings. The dude, for the avoidance of doubt, nobody can argue he's one of the GOATs, Mount Rushmore of F1. So what happened last year then? He failed to blend and or mesh with the very peculiar handling mechanics of that W15 car now. And so that's the problem for which Scuderia Ferrari, Frederick Vasseur et al. Need to solve going into this year. Gary Anderson argues that he doesn't think, looking at the evidence of testing, that they have done. Anderson says, quote, it's still early days, but on first impressions, it does not look as though the new Ferrari is a great upgrade on last year's Mercedes W15. Say it's not so, Gary Anderson. Not in those terms, mate. The blasphemy, the sacrilege, oh, the humanity. Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton fans around the world, cover your ears. He continues that the upgrades that they've made, push to pull rod suspension at the front, copy, but surely they should have made that 12 months ago. Adhere to the meta, copy the cleverest kid in the room's homework. No, this, says Gary Anderson, will succeed to lower the centre of gravity of the car. They've got the V-shaped rear wing, they've modified the leading edge, but that notwithstanding, the car did not look good. Anytime you see Lewis Hamilton having offs, that means that he's struggling with it, hasn't blended with it as he intended. The handling dynamic of the car isn't as benign as Sir Lewis Hamilton would like it. The car was hitting the ground too in testing. That shouldn't be happening. Should not be happening. If you're Sir Lewis Hamilton and you want yourself a car that's reliable and gives you the confidence using which you can push. Gary Anderson continues, in short, I'm not sure if Lewis Hamilton has the package yet better suited to him than the problematic Mercedes car he drove in 2-4. It's early days yet though, and that may all come to be fixed. Honestly, it's techie. And if you want further evidence of this school of thought, Charles Leclerc said as follows, and I quote, as I've been saying quite a few times, we still have quite a bit of work to do to be ready for Melbourne Australian Grand Prix. Not long now, Charles, aka modern day journalese. So that's what we're trying to find and work with collaboratively with Sir Lewis Carl. And there is more. Auto Racer, the chap that they call De Kaiser, has come out and said that there is a disconnect at that Ferrari, that the rear is unstable, that it keeps floating around the front end. And again, if you're Sir Lewis and to Charles Leclerc, aka modern day journal lady, that story does not make good reading. Oh, and by the way, Netflix is sniffing around F1 TV rights, and this is going to change the landscape potentially. There's rumour that ESPN are no longer interested. 80 million was their last lot. F1 now wants 180 million per year. By dint of the progressing growth, the extra attention dollars that F1's getting around the world at the altar of Drive to Survive, ESPN said, no, I'm out. We can't afford that. Our operating costs are too high to stomach $180 million per year for F1 TV rights in North America. Now, however, Netflix are looking at this more broadly. No longer are we talking about just North America. We're talking about the Americas, as the licensing, the TV rights come up for bidding in the likes of Brazil, South America more broadly. Netflix will have themselves some of that. So keen are they to diversify their sports portfolio. They understand that the gift and curse to a certain extent as far as sports coverage is that the product makes itself. There's nothing that you've got to script or write. It will happen anyway. A passive income of a content creation portfolio per se, and Netflix want in. Again, for the avoidance of doubt, not just to North America, but this now becomes an America's conversation. And we're not just talking about live sports, we're talking about archive history, so that they can go away and do their Senna documentary, at which, by the way, they threw, some say, a couple $100 million worth of budget. If that's not an indication of intent, how seriously they take Formula One and what it can do for them going forward, then I don't know what is. Oh, and by the way, ESPN don't have that many subscribers, right? They've got 50-something million, some say. But Netflix in Latin America only have 53 million subscribers. What are we doing here? That's chaos, chat. And then a further 90 million in United States and Canada. Joe Sayward reports. I'm telling you, we need to take this Netflix thing seriously. And I, for one, would enjoy just going to pay 10 to 11 quid per month on my Netflix subscription and catching all my F1 content there. Count me in. Oh, and finally, by the way, Maximilian Verstappen, these rumours will not go away about him leaving the Bulls that are red. You've heard me say like a madman on a gazillion occasions now that he needs himself a particular set of circumstances, a semblance of harmony. You could argue on the back of the business as usual episode on season 7 of Drive to Survive that all of the semblance of harmony is gonzo. That's fiction now. Mythos and legend, that's faded to black. Jos Verstappen may forget or may forgive, but he will never forget as far as PA Gate, Allegation Gate, Misconduct Gate. Rumour per Dutch publications is that there is still stuff ongoing that we can't talk about, being UK journos in inverted commas. Max Verstappen needs himself a car capable of winning races and therefore championships. Principally, that's the principal point of contention. I say all of that to say this. Imagine we get to Australia and per the odds makers, that Red Bull, the RB21, is nowhere. Imagine for a second a hypothetical world that Max Verstappen has himself a performance clause that indicates, as at race 3 in Japan, Suzuka, he's not within the first 3 in the driver's standing. He can null and void his contract. This is nothing new. As outrageous as it sounds, this has always been in Maximilian Verstappen's contract. Why? Because his father, Jos, doesn't want his son's career to fail at the same altar that his did. Bad car, bad circumstance, poor driver teammate. Here's what I heard though on the F1 Nation podcast, because you think I'm crazy talking about all this stuff, and sometimes I do sound quite crazy. Performance clause. What do you want about, Cameron? Max Verstappen's not leaving Red Bull. He said on a gazillion occasions that that's his family. Well, let's roll this clip.
I'm in no doubt though that it is Max Verstappen that is the gel keeping all that together. You can just watch him around people in the team. He energizes people. And if Max Verstappen were to leave on a performance clause at the end of the year, if they don't get the job done, Roman, I see a lot of parallels, I think, between what would happen at Red Bull as to what happened at Benetton in the mid-90s when Michael Schumacher left that team. Because when Michael left, all of the top engineers left, Ross Brawn left, Rory Byrne left, etc. And it took Benetton 10 years to come back and be a strong team again. And I would see something similar happening at Red Bull. I think Max is that integral to the performance there. I'm in no doubt.
All right, so that's Tom Clarkson, Mr. F1, the dude that conducts and chairs all the official F1 FIA press conferences with the drivers and team principals. You'll recognise the voice. That is the F1 Nation podcast. I will link it in the description. It's a conversation that he had with Roman Grosjean. If you missed it, he said, let's imagine a world where there's a performance clause in Max Verstappen's contract that means that he can leave at the end of this year going into 2026. New rules and regulations. I'm not crazy. Been talking about this for a gazillion years. Now you have Mr. F1 Tom Clarkson imagining a hypothetical world where things don't go to plan for Maximilian Verstappen. It could be a sabbatical, but more likely Max Verstappen leaves and goes to an Aston Martin, signs on the dotted line $1 billion worth to Lawrence Stroll, particularly if Pierre Vacher and Enrico Cardile, or Enrico Balbo even, haven't designed themselves an RB21 capable of winning races and championships in 2025. How do you like yourself some F1?